Picture the most beautiful house you've ever seen. 5 stories of white stucco in the smartest square in London, with pillars at the door and a fanlight above it, and window boxes full of geraniums that somebody waters every single morning. Now fill it with coal dust. Add a kitchen 90 degrees hot in August, a cellar full of black beetles, a girl of 13 sleeping on a folding bed next to the sink, and hands so raw from soda and cold water that they crack open and bleed into the washing up. That's a gentleman's townhouse in 1875, the most civilized address in the most powerful city on earth, and it runs on the bodies of 5 or 6 people who are not allowed to be seen. A place where a family of 4 upstairs requires 40 tons of coal a year carried up 5 flights of stairs by hand, and where the person carrying it can be dismissed without a reference for being visible while doing it. We're going back there tonight, not as guests arriving for dinner, admiring the silver and the gaslight and the smell of hothouse flowers. We're going down the area steps past the railings, through the door under the street that the family never uses and most of them have never seen. We're living it. One day, one person, everything she would have seen, smelled, heard, carried, scrubbed and survived. So I make these history stories, and honestly I still have no idea whether anyone actually sleeps to them, or whether you're all just lying there in the dark wanting to know what it felt like to blacklead a kitchen range at 5 in the morning with chilblains on 8 of your 10 fingers. Either way, subscribe if you want, get comfortable. Here we go. The rule comes first, before anything, so you may as well hear it now, because you will hear it 100 times before this day is over. If the family sees you, you have failed. Not failed at a task, failed at existing correctly. A housemaid in a good London house in 1875 is paid to produce results without producing evidence of herself. Fires appear, lit. Floors appear, clean. Hot water appears, steaming outside bedroom doors. Nobody's supposed to wonder how. If Miss Arabella comes down the stairs and you are on them with a slop pail, you are the one who turns your face to the wall. You press yourself against the cold plaster, you look at nothing, and you wait, holding a pail of what came out of the family's chamber pots, while a girl your own age passes 18 inches from your shoulder in a rustle of clean cotton and does not look at you, because looking at you would be as strange as looking at a chair. That is the world you're about to wake up in. And you are about to wake up, your eyes open to darkness. For a moment, maybe half a second, you have forgotten where you are. Then it hits you, the cold. Not the smell first, this time, though the smell is coming. The cold gets there before anything else, because you are lying in an attic at the very top of a tall house in London in early March, and there is no fireplace in this room. There has never been a fireplace in this room. There is a fireplace in every other room in the house. 14 of them, and you personally will clean and lay and light most of them within the next 3 hours. But heat in this house is something you make for other people. The window above your bed has frost on the inside of the glass. Your breath hangs in the air. The tip of your nose, the only part of you outside the blanket, feels like something that belongs to somebody else. Now the smell, its layers, the way it always is. The tallow stub you burned last night while you mended your stockings, greasy and sheepish, still hanging in the air. Damp plaster, because the roof lets water in at the corner and the stain on the ceiling has been growing all winter like a brown continent. The chamber pot under the other bed, because your roommate used it in the night. Yesterday's sweat in yesterday's flannel, because you sleep in the underthings you worked in. Everybody up here does. There is no other way to be warm enough. And under it all, soaked into the floorboards and the blankets and your own hair, the smell that follows you everywhere and has soaked into your dreams. Coal. Coal smoke, coal dust, the sharp mineral bite of it. You could be blindfolded and carried 100 miles and you would know a London house by that smell alone. Welcome to number 14, Eaton Place, Belgravia, London. It is 4:45 in the morning, the 11th of March, 1875. You're lying on an iron-frame bed with a mattress stuffed with flock, which is a polite word for the sweepings of a wool mill, under 2 blankets and your own winter coat, in a room 3 meters by 4 in the roof of one of the finest houses in England. Below you, going down, are 5 floors. The bedrooms of the family, the drawing rooms, the dining room, the ground floor hall with its black and white marble, and then, below the level of the street itself, the basement, which is where your entire life happens. The house belongs to Mr. Edward Ashworth, who owns shares in railways, and Mrs. Ashworth, who owns Mr. Ashworth. Also in residence, Miss Arabella, 19, and Master Frederick, 12, home from school with a cough. Your name is Hannah Blake. You're 17 years old and you arrived here 2 years ago from a village outside Ipswich in Suffolk, with a tin box containing 1 spare dress, a Bible from your mother, a print apron, and 4 shillings sewn into your hem. You came because your family had 8 children and a farm labourer's wages of 11 shillings a week, and a girl in service is a mouth that feeds itself and sends money home besides. Back home everyone said London would swallow you whole. They weren't entirely wrong, but it hasn't finished yet. Across the room, in the other bed, Lily is still asleep. Lily is the scullery maid. She is 13 years old from Bethnal Green, and she's been in this house for 5 months, and she has cried herself to sleep for approximately 4 of them. She has stopped now, mostly. You listen to her breathing in the dark, small and quick like an animal's, and you let her have 1 more minute, because the next 16 hours of her life are going to be spent standing at a stone sink, and 1 minute of sleep is the only gift you have the power to give anyone. Somewhere below you, 5 floors down through joists and plaster and silence, the kitchen range is stone cold. That is a problem. That is your first problem of the day, and if it is not solved within the hour, it becomes everyone's problem, and problems in this house roll downhill, and you and Lily live at the bottom of the hill. You need to get up. You do not want to get up. These 2 facts have a short, vicious fight every morning of your life, and wanting has never won once. You get up. The floorboards are so cold through your stockinged feet that it feels like standing on wet stone. You dress in the dark because you know where everything is. You drag your print dress over the underthings you slept in, and the cotton is so cold it's like putting on something taken out of a river. Corset laced by feel, quick and loose. No one is going to see your figure, and you need to be able to bend all day. Thick stockings, 2nd pair over the first. Boots, left unlaced for now, because the sound of boot heels on attic stairs before 5 o'clock is a sackable noise if it wakes the family, and you have learned to come down the first 2 flights in a kind of gliding creep. Heels never touching, weight on the outside edges of your feet, 1 hand on the wall where the banister creaks. You shake Lily's shoulder. She comes awake the way she always does, with a flinch, arms up, as if the world has hit her before and she expects it to do so again. Where she comes from, it probably has. 4:45, you whisper. Range. She groans a sound that isn't a word and starts fighting her way into her clothes, and you leave her to it, and start down through the sleeping house, down the bare wooden back stairs that the family does not know exist in any real sense, the way you do not know the plumbing of your own body. down past the closed doors behind which 4 people are sleeping in warmth that you made yesterday, carrying your boots in one hand, breathing shallow, making no more noise than the house itself. 6 flights, 82 steps. You've counted them the way a prisoner counts anything. By the last flight, the air changes, gets colder and damper, and starts to smell of yesterday's mutton fat and scoured stone. And then you push through the baize door, the padded door covered in green felt that exists for one single purpose. And it is worth stopping half a second on that purpose, because the whole world you live in is explained by that door. The green baize door divides the house into 2 countries. On one side, carpets, wallpaper, oil paintings, silence. On the other side, stone, whitewash, echo, work. The felt is there to stop sound. Your sounds. The clatter of your pans and the scrape of your grates and the voices of your kind are not permitted to leak into the other country. The family's sounds come through it just fine when they ring. And this is how you learn the first rule of the house before the sun has even considered rising. The door is soft so that you can be hard and quiet and invisible on the other side of it. The kitchen at 5 in the morning is a black room. You light a candle from the box of lucifers on the mantel shelf, and the light shows you the enemy, the range. The range is a Leamington Kitchener, a slab of cast iron 6 feet wide, with an open fire in the middle, an oven on one side, a boiler on the other, and a personality like a drunk uncle. Everything in this house depends on it. Hot water for washing, hot water for tea, breakfast for 4 upstairs and 7 down, luncheon, dinner, the lot. And every single night it dies, and every single morning before anybody else in London is awake, a girl brings it back to life with her bare hands. First it has to be cleaned, because you cannot light a fire on yesterday's ash. You kneel on the flagstones, and the cold comes up through your skirt and your petticoat and your knees like it has been waiting for you all night. You rake the ash. The dust rises no matter how gently you do it. Fine grey powder that gets into your throat, your eyelashes, the creases of your knuckles, and you will taste it faintly all day, behind your teeth, the taste of burnt-out fire. You shovel the ash into the bucket. The shovel scrapes the iron with a sound like a shout in the silent house, and you wince, though the family is 4 floors up and could not hear a cannon from here. Wincing at noise is in your body now. It doesn't ask permission. Then the blacklead. This is the part nobody upstairs has ever imagined, because if they imagined it, they would have to know it happens. Cast iron rusts, so cast iron must be polished. So every morning of the world you take a bar of blacklead, which is graphite and grease and black as sin, work it into a paste, and brush it onto the cold iron. On with one brush, off with a harder brush. Shine with the leather. Your arms go like pistons, short fast strokes, and within 2 minutes your right forearm is burning, and within 5 it has gone past burning into a dull wooden ache that you know will still be there at bedtime. The blacklead gets into your hands, not onto, into. It settles into every crack of your skin and outlines every line of your palms in black, and it does not wash out with anything you can afford, and this is why, if you ever hold your hand next to Miss Arabella's, which you never will, it would look like the hand of a different species. Servants' hands are checked at church, at interviews in the street. Your hands are your papers. They say what you are before your mouth opens. Now, the fire itself. Crumpled paper, kindling laid in a crosshatch, small coals on top, the whole thing built like an argument, and then the match, and then the weight. The kindling catches with a sound like someone crumpling silk. Smoke rises, checks, curls back at you, stings your eyes, and you work the damper with the little iron key and coax the chimney into drawing, and finally the fire takes with a soft roar, and the first orange light fills the black kitchen, and you sit back on your heels for exactly 3 seconds, hands hanging, and watch it. 3 seconds. That's the pause you're allowed. Then the kettle goes on, the big black kettle that weighs 8 pounds empty and 20 full, and you swing it onto the hob with both hands and a grunt you'd never let anyone hear. Lily has appeared, silent, hair scraped back, already at the scullery sink starting on the pans left soaking from last night. And here is a fact about Lily's day that I need you to actually feel, not just hear. She will stand at that sink, on stone flags, in water-splashed boots, for most of the next 16 hours. The sink is stone. The water starts cold because hot water is rationed until the boiler heats. The soap is soda crystals, which dissolve grease beautifully, and skin is grease. By December of her first year, Lily's hands had gone the way all scullery maids' hands go. Red, swollen, split at the knuckles, weeping at the splits. There is a word for it. Chilblains, chapped hands, washerwoman's hands. The cook rubs mutton fat into them at night, which helps and hurts and smells, and Lily doesn't cry about it anymore, which is either better or worse. You've never decided. While the kettle heats, you start on the breakfast room, because the family will want it warm and lit and perfect by 8, and perfection takes 3 hours to make and no time at all to see. You carry the housemaid's box up the back stairs. Learn this object because your whole morning lives inside it. A wooden box with a handle, and in it, blackleading brushes, emery paper, cloths, a hearth brush, a small shovel, and a piece of old carpet to kneel on. Loaded, it weighs perhaps 12 pounds. 12. You will carry it up and down these stairs this morning to fires on 4 different floors, and your left hip already knows the exact bruised spot where the corner of it rides. In the breakfast room you kneel again. You are always kneeling. If you added up your day, you would find you spend more of it on your knees than a nun. You spread the drugget, the carpet square, so that not one speck of your ash touches their carpet, and you clean the grate, and lead it, and lay the fire, and light it, and while it catches you sweep the carpet with damp tea leaves scattered first to hold the dust down. Use tea leaves, saved from yesterday. Nothing in this house is thrown away until it has served 3 purposes, and you dust every surface in a particular unchanging order. Mantle, overmantle, sideboard, chair back, sills, so that nothing is ever missed, and the whole time you are listening. Listening upward, the house talks through its bones. A floorboard overhead, a door, water in a pipe. The family stirring early is a small emergency, because you must not be here when they come down. The room must simply have become warm and clean by itself, the way it always does, the way it has every morning of their lives, by magic, by nothing, by nobody. By 6:30 you have done the breakfast room, the morning room and the dining room, and hauled 2 scuttles of coal up from the cellar to feed them. And a full coal scuttle weighs close to 30 pounds, and there is a technique to carrying it. Hip out, arms straight, lean the other way, that every housemaid learns in her first week, and every housemaid's spine remembers for the rest of her life. Doctors this very decade are writing about a thing they find in servant girls and hardly anyone else. An inflamed swelling of the kneecap from years of kneeling on stone and wet floors. They call it housemaid's knee. Your profession is so hard on the body that pieces of the body are named after it. At 7, you get your own breakfast, standing up at the kitchen table's corner. Tea, bread, dripping. The dripping is beef fat from yesterday's roast, spread like butter, salted, and you will never in your life stop half loving it. You eat fast, the way everyone in this basement eats, because a bell can go at any moment, and here we come to the bells, and the bells deserve a proper introduction, because the bells are the nervous system of your world. On the kitchen passage wall there is a board, and on the board hang bells, one for every important room in the house, each bell on a coiled spring, each connected by a hidden wire that runs through the walls to a handle upstairs. Drawing room, dining room, front door, Mrs. Ashworth's bedroom, Miss Arabella's bedroom. When a hand upstairs pulls a handle, a bell down here jumps and swings and rings, and goes on swinging after it rings so you can see which one it was. You know every bell by its voice alone. You could stand with your back to the board and name them like family. The drawing room is bright and quick. The front door is deep. Mrs. Ashworth's bedroom bell has a slight crack in its tone, and it is the bell you fear most, and when it goes, this whole basement moves like a kicked anthill. The bell means appear. Climb 4 flights. Catch your breath on the landing because arriving breathless is unseemly. Knock, enter, receive an instruction that may be as small as put more coal on this fire that you're standing next to, madam, close enough to touch, and then descend 4 flights and continue what you were doing. There are days the bells ring you up and down those stairs 20 times. Someone with a taste for arithmetic once worked out that a maid in a tall London house could climb the height of a mountain inside a working week and never once leave the building. You were not allowed to be seen doing the work that kept the house alive, but you could be summoned at any second by a wire in the wall, invisible and on a string. Hold those 2 things in your head at once, that's service. At 7:30 the upper servants come down, and the basement rearranges itself around them like water around stones, because make no mistake, the country below the baize door has its own aristocracy, its own snobbery, its own throne room, and the throne room is called the housekeeper's room, and the person on the throne is Mrs. Reeve. Mrs. Reeve is the housekeeper. She's called Mrs. as a title of rank, not marriage. She has never had a husband and never will, because a housekeeper is married to a set of keys. The keys hang at her waist on a chatelaine, a chain of them, tea caddy, store cupboard, linen press, china closet, cellar, and they announce her the way a rattle announces a snake. You have learned to hear that faint metallic slither through 2 closed doors. Everyone in the basement has. When the keys go quiet somewhere near you, that is when you check your work. She is perhaps 50, grey hair under a black lace cap, black silk dress, hands folded, spine like a poker. She was a housemaid herself once, 40 years ago, in a colder house than this, under a crueler woman than herself, and she would tell you, if she ever told you anything personal, which she will not, that she is kind by the standard she was raised under. Here is the thing you have slowly understood about Mrs. Reeve, and it has taken you 2 years. She is not on the family's side, and she is not on your side. She is on the house's side. The house is her country and her religion. A crooked antimacassar offends her the way blasphemy offends a bishop. And because the house cannot be perfect unless you are competent, she has taught you more about work than anyone alive, in a voice that has never once risen and never once warmed. Then there is Mr. Soames, the butler, who rules the dining room, the wine cellar, the silver and the front door. and who moves through the basement in the mornings in his shirt sleeves and green apron, cleaning the plate, rubbing rouge powder into serving dishes with his thumbs. A big, slow-spoken man from Kent who's been in service since he was a boy of 11, 41 years, and whose entire savings, you happen to know from Cook, are the tips and veils of 4 decades, held in a post office account against the dream of one day keeping a public house. Every butler in England dreams of keeping a public house. Almost none of them live to do it. And there is Cook, Mrs. Fenwick, red-armed, quick-tempered, secretly soft, who runs the kitchen like a ship's engine room and calls you girl when she's pleased with you and Hannah Blake when you're in trouble, and nothing at all when you're really in trouble. And Ellen, the parlour maid, one rung above you, pretty, and knows it, who serves tea in the drawing room and answers the door in the afternoons and therefore exists faintly in the family's world the way you do not. And James, the footman, hired, and I am telling you the literal truth, partly for his height, because a tall footman is a status symbol, and 6-footers command higher wages, whose working costume includes plush breeches and powdered hair, and who is called James by the family, although his name is actually Walter, because the family has always called its footman James, and it is easier to rename a man than to learn one. Sit with that for a second, in the dark, wherever you are. It is easier to rename a man than to learn him. That's the house you work in. Nobody thinks it's cruel. That is what makes it what it is. Breakfast goes up at 8. You hear it rather than see it. The lift of trays, the smell of bacon and devilled kidneys and coffee rising through the house to people still in their dressing gowns, while down here the second wave of your day is already building, because now the bedrooms are emptying and the bedrooms are yours. The rule of bedroom work is the same rule as everything, in and out like a ghost, while the family is at breakfast, and everything transformed before they climb the stairs again. You go up the back stairs with your box and your pails, and you strip the beds and turn the mattresses, and a good horsehair mattress is a dead weight of 40 pounds that fights you like a drunk man. And you open the windows to air the rooms, even though the March air comes in like knives, because Victorian medical wisdom is terrified of stale air, and honestly, given what's floating in it, fair enough. And you deal with the slops. I'll say this delicately, and then I'll say it plainly, because this is the part of a housemaid's day that the whole century agreed never to mention. There are 2 water closets in this house, proper flushing ones, one for the family and one in the basement yard for the servants. But at night, nobody in 1875 walks down a cold corridor. Under every bed and in every night table there is china, and every morning some person has to make that china clean again and carry the results down 5 flights in a covered slop pail, and that person, in this house, in every house like it, is you. You do it with your face still. You do it the way you do everything, as if it is nothing, because the moment it becomes something, you cannot do it at all. And when you pass Miss Arabella's door and hear her inside complaining to her mother that the new sleeves make her arms look thick, you keep your face still then too. Her worst problem this morning is sleeves. You are carrying her night into the basement in a pail. The bow was correct, as somebody says in another story on this channel. That was never the point. Miss Arabella's room takes the longest, because Miss Arabella generates chaos the way a fire generates smoke, effortlessly, continuously, without ever once looking behind her. 3 dresses tried on and abandoned across the bed, hairpins on the carpet, and you pick up every single one. kneeling, sweeping your palm across the pile because a hairpin in the carpet brush means a scratched grate later, and everything in your world connects to everything else. On her dressing table, silver-backed brushes, a scatter of powder like the finest snow, and a bottle of scent from Bond Street that costs, because Ellen looked at the price once in a shop window and reported it downstairs like war news. More than you earn in a month. And here, since we are standing at her dressing table, is the arithmetic of your life, and I will only do this once, so hold still for it. You're paid £14 a year, not a month, a year. With your keep, your food, your attic bed, your beer allowance, which is real, and your uniform mostly found by yourself out of your own wages, which is a swindle nobody calls a swindle. £14. Mr. Ashworth's dinner for 12 people, later in this very story, will cost more than that in wine alone. You send £5 a year home to Suffolk, where it is not a small thing. It is shoes for 3 brothers and the doctor when the baby had croup. You are saving in a tin under a loose board in the attic, at the rate of roughly a shilling a week, towards a future you can't fully picture, and you have, at the present moment, £4, 11 shillings and sixpence, and you know that figure the way Mr. Ashworth knows his railway shares, because it is the only number in the world that is yours. You finish the beds. You lay the bedroom fires ready for evening. You fill the ewers on every washstand with fresh water, carried up. A gallon weighs £10, and you carry 2 at a time, and you take one last look around each room, the look Mrs. Reeve trained into you, the slow sweep from door hinge to window latch, and you make each room into a photograph of itself, and then you vanish, and the family comes upstairs to rooms that have healed themselves overnight, the way they always do, the way rooms simply do, don't they? If you have never in your life had to think about it. By 10 o'clock you have been working for 5 hours, and the house is only just beginning its day. At 10 there is a small earthquake, and it comes down the back stairs in the shape of Mrs. Reeve. She finds you on the first floor landing with your box, and she does not say good morning, because the morning's goodness is your responsibility, not a greeting. She says, "Her ladyship's sister and party tonight, dinner for 12, and then she stands there and lets those 7 words do their work. Dinner for 12, tonight, in a house staffed for a quiet family of 4. You need to understand what a dinner party is, below stairs, in 1875, so that you can feel what just happened to your day. A dinner party is a military operation announced hours before the battle. It is 8 courses. It is every piece of silver in the house out, cleaned, counted. It is the best china washed twice, once to clean it, and once to be sure. It is the dining table extended with its extra leaves, which live in the box room and weigh like coffin lids, and the great damask cloth ironed on the table itself with irons, heated on the range and swapped the moment they cool, and Mrs. Reeve reading the linen for creases like a fortune-teller reading a palm. It is cook downstairs, going from calm to incandescent in the space of 1 sentence, and staying incandescent for 11 hours. It is extra hands, a waiting man hired in for the evening, a charwoman for the rough scullery work, because the fiction upstairs is that the household simply produces such evenings, easily, from its own graceful depths, and the truth downstairs is that the household is a small factory going on to war production between one heartbeat and the next, and you feel, under the dread, and you would never confess this to anyone, a small hot coal of excitement, because a dinner party is terrible, and it is also the only theatre you are ever in. The morning becomes a landslide. Cook takes the menu from Mrs. Reeves' hand like a general taking a dispatch and reads it out flat in a voice of doom. Clear soup and a white soup, turbot in lobster sauce, sweetbreads, saddle of mutton, roast fowls, a game course, a shallot russe, jellies, ices, cheese, dessert. Somebody, she says, meaning the mistress, meaning upstairs, meaning God, thinks turbot swims up the area steps by itself. The kitchen becomes a weather system. The range, your range. The one you raised from the dead at 5 this morning is now roaring at full draught and will not drop below roaring until midnight. And the kitchen climbs through warm into hot into something with no polite name. By afternoon the walls themselves sweat. Cook's forearms go past red. Lily at her sink disappears behind a permanent hanging cloud of steam, washing the same copper pans over and over as they rotate back to her dirty, because the batterie de cuisine is large, but the menu is larger. Copper is heavy. A big stock pot is 15 pounds of metal before you put anything in it, and it must be scoured with a horrible personal blend of sand, salt and vinegar until it shines. Because a dull pan, Cook says, is a dirty pan, and Lily's split knuckles are in and out of sand and vinegar all afternoon. And if you've ever had vinegar in a cut, one cut, once, you know 1/100th of Lily's Tuesday. You are lent to everyone at once. You run to the fishmonger's boy at the area door where the turbot arrives packed in ice and seaweed. A flat monster the size of a tea tray, cold as the grave and smelling of the whole North Sea, and you carry it in on both forearms like a foundling. You pluck, you pod, you pound sugar from the loaf, because sugar in 1875 arrives as a solid conical block and becomes usable only through violence, nippers, and then mortar and pestle. And after 10 minutes of pounding your right shoulder files, a formal complaint that you ignore, because ignoring your body is the core professional skill of your entire class. You whip cream with a birch whisk in a bowl held against your hip until your wrist burns and the cream turns. And there is a moment, a genuinely dangerous moment, where Cook tastes the lobster sauce off the back of a spoon, and the whole kitchen holds its breath. And she stares at the middle distance like a woman listening for burglars, and then says, "More cayenne," and the kitchen breathes again. And through all of it, the bells keep ringing, because upstairs, incredibly, unbelievably, the family is having an ordinary day. The drawing room bell, more coal. Miss Arabella's bell. Her walking dress, sponged and pressed by 3. Master Frederick's bell, because he is 12 and homesick and bored, and being 12 and bored with a bell in your reach is a form of absolute power that no emperor has ever matched. Beef tea, then a jigsaw fetched from the box room, then, at 2:30, and this is real, this is the request as delivered, a different spoon. You climb 4 flights to bring a boy a different spoon. He does not look at you when you swap it. He is looking at his jigsaw. It is a picture of the Alps. Down in the kitchen, Cook sees your face as you come back through the door and reads it in one glance, and says, not unkindly, the thing that cooks and housemaids have said to each other since houses had stairs. "Don't let it in, girl. There's no profit in letting it in. You don't let it in. You put it where you put everything, in the same tin under the same floorboard in your chest, where the 4 pounds 11 and 6 live, and you go back to work. But I'll tell you something Cook doesn't say, and Mrs. Reeve doesn't say, and the manuals of household management certainly don't say. Everyone in this basement has a version of that tin. Mr. Soames has 41 years in his, and once in a while, late, when the beer has gone round after a hard day, somebody's tin opens on its own, just a crack, and something comes out of it. A story about a mistress in a former place who made her count the sugar lumps, a master who checked the coal cellar with a candle at midnight, a reference refused out of spite that cost a girl 2 years of her life. The stories come out flat and short, told to the fire, and then somebody laughs, and the tins close again. That laugh, that exact laugh, low, brief, downward, is the sound of your country. The other country, above the baize door, never hears it once. At 4 o'clock, in the middle of the landslide, comes the strangest half hour of the day, and you would miss it if you blinked. Your dinner. The servants' hall dinner, the main meal of your day, eaten at 4 because the evening belongs to theirs. The whole basement sits down at the long deal table, scrubbed white as bone, in strict order, Mr. Soames at the head, Mrs. Reeve at his right, down the ranks to Lily at the foot, and there is boiled beef, and carrots, and suet pudding, and for 20 minutes the machine stops. James the footman, who is Walter, tells a story about the hired waiting man at the last big dinner who drank the dregs of every glass that came down and had to be stood in the yard. Ellen laughs too loudly and looks at James too long, which is a whole other story quietly happening in the margins of this one, the way it always is. Cook eats standing for the last 5 minutes because she cannot sit still with a saddle of mutton in her mind's eye. And you get, for once, enough. Enough meat, enough bread, enough tea. Whatever else is true of a good place. And you know girls in bad places, girls kept on scraps and stale ends. In this house you are fed. It is the one wage that arrives 3 times a day without fail, and you are country enough still, Suffolk enough, to feel it as the serious thing it is. Then Mr. Soames takes out his watch and looks at it and puts it away, and the table rises as one body, and the last calm of the day is over. Between 5 and 7 the house splits fully into its 2 selves, and you get to watch both at once, which is the strange privilege of being nobody. Upstairs, the drawing room and dining room are being turned into a stage set, and you are part of the crew. You carry up coal until the scuttles brim, because tonight the fires must not merely burn, they must glow, banked and perfect, warm enough that ladies with bare shoulders feel nothing but comfort. You light the gas. This house has gas laid on in the reception rooms, brass brackets on the walls, and lighting them is a small ceremony. Turn the tap, hear the soft hiss like a secret being told, touch the taper, and the flame pops blue, then settles gold inside its etched glass shade. And the room changes temperature in your eyes even before it changes in fact. Gaslight is warmer than daylight and kinder than truth. Under gaslight, the mistress's rooms look the way she believes they are. Mr. Soames and James are laying the table, and a laid dinner table in 1875 is an act of architecture. The damask first, then the centrepiece, an epingle, a branching silver thing like a tree bearing fruit and ferns. Then out from it in strict geography the ranks of silver. 3 forks, 3 knives, spoons, all of it just cleaned, all of it counted out of the plate chest against a written list and counted back in again at midnight, because silver is wealth you can carry, and every servant in England lives 1 miscounted fork away from an accusation. Glasses at each place like a small crystal skyline. Sherry, hock, claret, champagne. Mr. Soames walks the table's perimeter with a ruler. I am not inventing the ruler. The distance of each chair, each plate edge from the table edge, is measured. Perfection is not a metaphor down here. It has units. And below, at the same hour, the kitchen reaches the state that cook calls, with grim relish, the boil. Every burner working, the ovens full, the air one solid fabric of smells with edges in it. roasting mutton fat sharp and sweet, stock, hot char, lobster, vanilla from the ice cream tub packed in ice and salt, that Lily turns and turns and turns by the crank handle until her arm is wood. The heat now is genuinely violent. Cook's face runs. The hired charwoman, elbow deep in the second sink, has gone the colour of brick. Someone opens the area door to the March night, and the cold falls in like a blessing, and Cook roars it shut again because of her sauces. There is a thermometer in this kitchen for the sugar work. There is no thermometer for the people. At 7:30, the first knockerfall on the front door booms through the house like the start of a play, and the play begins. And here is the mechanics of it, the thing I find I cannot stop thinking about. 8 courses will now go up from this basement to that dining room, up one steep flight of service stairs, on trays, in covered dishes, in a precisely timed relay, carried by James and the hired man, marshalled at the sideboard by Mr. Soames for 2.5 hours, and the 12 people at the table will experience the entire evening as effortless. That is the product this house manufactures. Not soup, not mutton, effortlessness. The soup is a byproduct. You're stationed on the service landing between worlds, and your job is the door and the trays, taking the incoming dishes at the top of the stairs so the men never break stride. And so, for 2.5 hours, you stand 18 inches from the dining room of the ruling class with your back against the wall, and you hear everything. You hear the sound money makes when it is relaxed. It is a specific sound, and you could pick it out of 1,000. Low, unhurried, frequently amused, never once anxious about the next sentence, because no sentence these people have ever said has cost them anything. You hear Mr. Ashworth being witty about a railway in Argentina. You hear the sister's husband say that the country's going to the dogs comfortably with his mouth full, the way a man says it when the dogs in question will never reach his street. You hear Miss Arabella laugh at a young man's joke a half-second before the joke ends, and you note, with the cold professional eye of someone who cleans her room, that she has decided to marry him, or at least to consider it, and you know it before her mother does, and possibly before she does, because nobody watches a family like the people it doesn't see. And once, exactly once, the dining room door swings wide as James goes through, and for 3 seconds the whole tableau is framed in the doorway like a painting. The candles doubled in the mirrors, the silver tree of the epergne, the bare shoulders and black coats, the roses, in March, roses, grown under glass somewhere, and bought this morning for more than Lily earns in a month. And the faces all turn to one speaker, gold-lit, laughing, and it is, you will admit it to yourself and to no one else, the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. That is the trap of this life, and you know you are in it even as it closes. They keep the beauty upstairs, and they let you look at it just long enough, just often enough, through just enough closing doors, that you can never quite decide whether you're outside a prison or a heaven. Then the door swings shut, and you're on a dark landing holding an empty turbot dish with a smear of lobster sauce going cold on it, and your feet, which you stopped consulting hours ago, send up one bulletin, which you decline to read. The dish has come down. That is the other half of the relay. The half no one ever paints, the ruins. Down the stairs in the opposite direction flows the wreckage of each course, and at the bottom of the house it piles up around Lily like a tide, and she washes and washes, and the charwoman washes, and you, whenever you can be spared from the landing, wash, and the water is grey and greasy and then changed and then grey again. and somewhere around the fourth course you notice the thing you will wish you hadn't noticed. Lily is slow, not lazy slow. Lily has never been lazy in her life. Where she comes from, lazy doesn't eat. Wrong slow. She's holding the edge of the sink between pans. Her face over the steam is the wrong colour, flushed at the cheekbones and grey around the mouth at the same time, and when she reaches for the next copper, her hand goes past it and has to come back. You put your palm flat between her shoulder blades, 1 second, the way your mother used to, and through the damp cotton her back is hot. Not kitchen hot. Hot from the inside. Cook, I say. It comes out of you before you can weigh it. Cook looks. Cook has seen 40 years of kitchens and 11 hours of this one, and she crosses the flags and puts her red wrist against Lily's forehead, and her face does something small and fast and then goes deliberately blank, and that blankness frightens you more than a shout would. Upstairs the game course is going in. There are 2 hours of dinner left, and the machine cannot stop, and everyone in this kitchen knows it cannot stop, and Lily knows it best of all, because she straightens up and pushes the wet hair off her forehead with the back of a chapped hand, and says, in her flat Bethnal Green voice, small and 13 and swaying very slightly, "I'm all right. Give us the pan." By morning, that sentence will be the thing you cannot stop hearing. Cook does the arithmetic that women like her have always done, the arithmetic of no good choices. She cannot send Lily to bed. The sink would drown, and the dinner would falter, and a faltered dinner rolls downhill, and there is a hired charwoman present who talks, and there is a phrase that hangs over every basement in London like weather, and the phrase is fever in the house. So cook does what the possible allows. She moves Lily off the sink and onto the ice cream crank, sitting down by the open larder where the air is coldest, and she puts the charwoman on the copper, and she says to you, quietly, in the voice she uses maybe twice a year, "Watch her." And the machine grinds on, because it is a machine, and machines do not care what they are made of. The dinner ends the way dinners end. From your side of the wall, a scraping of many chairs like distant applause, the ladies rising to go up to the drawing room, the gentleman's talk dropping half an octave and thickening as the port goes round, and then, much later, the front door opening and closing on carriage after carriage, wheels on the wet street, and Mr. Soames's voice in the hall doing its front of house velvet, and the last knocker echo, and then the peculiar ringing silence of a house that has just performed. It is 1:45 in the morning. You've been working at this point for very nearly 20 hours, and the day is not over, because a house cannot be left dirty overnight. That is doctrine, Mrs. Reeves' doctrine, and the whole centuries. So the silver is counted back piece by piece into the felt-lined chest with Mr. Soames, reading the list aloud like evening prayers, and the glasses are washed by hand, by you, in wooden bowls, because glass against a stone sink at 1 in the morning by candlelight is how glasses die, and the dining room fire is raked safe, and the gas is turned off, bracket by bracket, hiss by hiss, until the great rooms lie dark and enormous, smelling of cigar smoke and dying roses, already becoming tomorrow's work, because someone will have to air that smoke out at 6, and the someone is you. You take Lily up the attic stairs with your arm around her, feeling her shiver in beats, like something with a pulse of its own. You put her to bed in her clothes minus boots, pile both your blankets and your coat on her, and stand for a moment in the black cold room listening to her teeth. Her forehead under your hand is a stove lid. In the dark she says, Don't Tell Mrs. Reeve, and the fear in it is not fear of the fever. You know exactly what it is fear of, and we will get to it, and it is worse than the fever. You sleep, if that is the word, in Lily's bed, under your shawl and a spare sheet, and the last thing you hear is the church clock somewhere over the roof striking 2, and your body drops through the mattress like a stone through water. 3 hours later, the 11th of March becomes the 12th, and it all starts again. Range, blacklead, kindling, kettle. Your hands do it without you. That is not a figure of speech. You surface at one point kneeling at the breakfast room grate with the leading brush moving, and you have no memory of the stairs. Your body has learned the day so thoroughly it can perform the day alone, and there is something in that which would frighten you if you had anything left over to be frightened with. But this morning is not the same as yesterday morning, because this morning, above you in the attic, is Lily, and Lily could not stand up. You saw it at 4:30. She tried. Understand that. 13 years old, burning, joints aching so that she whimpered turning over, and her first act on waking was to try to get up and go down to the sink, because the alternative was being ill, and being ill for a servant is not a state of the body. It is a status. It is a problem you have become. You pressed her back down with one hand, it took one hand, that's how little was left of her, and you said the bravest sentence of your own day, "I'll tell cook." Now kneeling at the grate you assemble what you know, and I want you to assemble it too, piece by piece, because this is the machinery of the thing, and the machinery is the horror. 1. There is scarlet fever in London this spring. There is scarlet fever in London every spring. It is one of the great child killers of the age, and Lily's flush and fire and aching throat could be that, or could be a bad chill, or could be anything, and none of you are competent to say. 2. A doctor could say, but a doctor costs money, half a guinea for a visit, and whose half guinea, and to summon a doctor into the house, is to make the illness official, visible, upstairs' business. 3. And here is the trap fully sprung. If it is fever, really fever, the one thing that cannot happen is for it to reach the family, and above all Master Frederick, 12, delicate, already coughing, and the instant the mistress hears the word fever and the word scullery in the same breath. Lily does not get a doctor. Lily gets a cab. To the fever hospital if she's lucky, and the workhouse infirmary if she is not, and either way she leaves this house, and a scullery maid who leaves a house sick. Mid-quarter, has no wages owed worth speaking of, no character worth having, and a mother in Bethnal Green with 5 other children who took this place for Lily precisely because it came with a bed and food. That is what Don't Tell Mrs. Reeve meant. Lily was not afraid of dying. Children in Bethnal Green know about dying the way farm children know about weather. She was afraid of being sent back to it. You tell cook at 6 in the empty kitchen, in 5 flat sentences, and you watch the same arithmetic run behind cook's eyes, and then cook does something that you will think about for the rest of your life whenever anyone tells you what servants were like. She goes to the larder and makes with her own hands, in the 15 minutes before the breakfast bacon, a jug of black currant drink for a raw throat and a mustard plaster, and she takes the beef tea meant for Master Frederick's 11sies and pours a cup off the top for the attic, and replaces the volume with water, and looks at you doing the arithmetic on that and says, "He's having jam roll as well, he'll live." And then she says the other thing. She says, "We keep this in the kitchen, girl. 3 days. If she turns the corner in 3 days, it was a chill and nobody's business." And you say, "And if she doesn't?" and Cook wipes her hands on her apron the way she does when a sauce is beyond saving and doesn't answer, because you are both standing in the same trap and you both know its dimensions, and there is a bell ringing, the crack-toned bell. Mrs. Ashworth's bedroom, hot water, and the day has you again. So begins the strangest stretch of your 2 years in service, the 3 days you run 2 lives on one body, the visible day, unchanged, unchangeable, fires and slops and stairs and bells, the house consuming its usual 16 hours of you. And threaded through it, hidden in its seams, the other day, up the attic stairs with beef tea at a half run in the slack 10 minutes after breakfast goes up. Cool water and a cloth for her head at noon while your own dinner goes cold. The chamber pot from the attic smuggled down among the family slops where one more pail draws no eye, and there is a black joke in that somewhere, that the safest place to hide a poor child's sickness is inside the intimate dirt of the rich, but you are too tired to laugh at it, and it isn't funny anyway, or it is exactly as funny as everything else here, which is to say, later. It will be funny in 20 years downstairs told to the fire, ending in that short, low laugh. Ellen catches you on the attic stairs with the cup on the second afternoon, and looks at the cup and looks at you, and here is a coin flip on which everything sits, because Ellen is vain, and Ellen is ambitious, and information is currency below stairs like everywhere else. And Ellen holds your eye for a long second and then says, Mrs. Reeves doing linen till 4, you've a clear run, and goes on down, skirts swinging, already back in her own story. You stand there with the cooling cup and understand something about your country, the downstairs country, that the upstairs one will never print in any of its improving manuals. It is not that servants are loyal to their masters. Sometimes they are, often they aren't. Mostly, it never comes up. It is that, at the bottom of the house, when the machine bears down, the machine's parts hide each other. On the 3rd night you sit on the edge of Lily's bed at 1 a.m. with a candle stub, so tired that the flame keeps growing feathers at the edges of your sight, and you sponge her hands, her ruined red scullery hands, 13 years old, and she is muttering, half in fever, about pans, about a pan she thinks she has left dirty, apologizing to the pan, and you hear yourself saying it's done. All the pans are done. You did them all, over and over, like a psalm, until the muttering stops and her breathing goes long, and you sit in the small circle of light in the freezing attic at the top of the sleeping golden house, and you think, with a clarity that only exhaustion gives, nobody upstairs will ever know this happened. Whatever ends of this, live or die, stay or go, the house's memory will not contain it. The house remembers the dinner. The dinner was a great success. Mrs. Ashworth said so to Mrs. Reeve, who said so to Mr. Soames at table, who inclined his head 1 inch, which is his applause. The house will remember the roses and the turbot. The house has no place to keep the fact that its smallest servant fought for her life in its attic, because the house, above the green door, does not know the attic is inhabited. And by morning she was better. You feel it before you're fully awake, the change in the room, the absence of that dry fire heat radiating from the other bed. Her forehead under your hand is damp and cool. The fever has broken in the night the way fevers do at their own hour for their own reasons, and Lily opens her eyes in the 5 o'clock dark and looks at you with her old sharp starling look, and says the first sane thing in 3 days, which is, characteristically, "Is it late? Am I late?" And you laugh. Once, the downstairs laugh, low and short, and it comes out with an edge of water in it that you blink away in the dark where she can't see. It was a chill then, or it wasn't. and she is simply one of the ones who lives. Scarlet fever kills one child and lets the next one go and never explains itself. Nobody will ever know, because nobody with letters after their name was ever in that room. The whole thing happened below the waterline of history, the way almost everything that ever happened to people like you happened below the waterline of history, which is precisely, if you think about it, why you and I are here tonight, 150 years later, in the dark, getting it back. 3 days, Cook said, and Cook was right, and when you tell her at 6 over the first tea, she nods exactly once, as if a source has come together after all, and says she stays on light work till Sunday, and if Mrs. Reeve asks, she had a cold, and Mrs. Reeve, for the record, never asks. Weeks later you will catch Mrs. Reeve, keys and all, leaving a flannel petticoat nearly new, folded without a word, on the foot of Lily's bed, and you will revise for the 100th time your map of where the hardness ends and the woman begins, and you will never finish that map, and neither will I. Then comes Sunday, and Sunday deserves its own slow look, because Sunday is the day the two countries of the house march out together and pretend for 90 minutes to be one country. Church. The whole household goes. That is not optional. It is in your terms of employment as surely as the £14, and it goes in order. The family in front, walking the 3 streets to St. Peter's, Eaton Square, a church so fashionable that pews are rented like houses, and behind them, at the correct interval, the servants, brushed and black, prayer books in gloved hands, and the gloves matter. Everyone below stairs owns one pair of good gloves, and they exist for this hour. Inside, the family files into their rented pew with its little door and its hassocks, and you file into the free seats at the back with the other household servants. And for an hour and a half the same words fall on both countries from the same pulpit. Rich man in his castle, poor man at his gate. God made them high or lowly and ordered their estate. That hymn is real. It is sung this decade in this church, and you sing it, 17 years old, in your one pair of gloves, and here is the honest truth about what you feel while you sing it. Because I refuse to hand you a false Victorian, and I refuse to hand you a false rebel either. Mostly, you feel the sit down. An hour and a half, seated, warm, nobody able to ring for you. The theology can look after itself. Your feet believe in the Church of England absolutely. But once in a while, some Sundays, in the middle of all that ordered estate, your eye crosses the aisle length of the church to the back of Miss Arabella's bonnet, and a thought arrives, unbidden, fully formed, in your own flat inner voice. I know what her hairbrush costs, and she does not know my surname. And the thought does not make you angry. Exactly. Anger is a fuel you cannot afford on your rations. It just sits there, cold and factual, like a stone in a field, and then the organ moves on, and so do you. Historians will spend a century wondering what servants thought. I'll tell you what servants thought. They thought that, in exactly that shape, and then they went home and did the fires, because thinking is free and everything else costs. Sunday afternoon, once a fortnight, if the week's work allows, which is a sentence with 3 trapdoors in it, is your time off. Church parade in the morning, cold dinner because cook rests too, and then, from 3 until the doors are locked at 9:30, London is, in a limited and supervised and hedged-about way, yours, and you spend it, this particular Sunday, the way you spend most of them. You walk. Walking is free. You go up out of the basement into the light like something emerging from underground, which is not a figure of speech. It is a literal description of your architecture, and you walk north, out of the white stucco silence of Belgravia, where the only people on foot on a Sunday are servants exactly like you, past Hyde Park Corner, where the carriages turn in at the gates, into the park itself, along Rotten Row where the riders go up and down being seen, and you find, as you always do, that the strangest thing about your free hours is the width of them. No walls 18 inches from your shoulders, no ceiling of listening, nobody able to ring. For the first half hour of every afternoon off, you feel almost seasick with it, the way sailors are said to stagger on land. You have 1 shilling, and you have decided, after grave internal debate, to spend 3p of it, a bag of hot chestnuts from the brazier-man by the park gate, and you eat them slowly one at a time, burning your fingertips on purpose, because your fingertips are so calloused from irons and coal that a hot chestnut is one of the few things that can still get through, and it feels, that small sting, weirdly like being young. And then you do the thing you do every time and have never told anyone, because it would sound like madness or worse, like ideas above your station. You walk up to the top of Primrose Hill, north of the Regent's Park, where the nursemaids take the children on weekdays, and where on a Sunday afternoon in March half of serving London seems to drift in 2s and 3s, black-coated, quiet-footed, off-duty, and you stand at the top and look south, and there it is. London, all of it, the whole grey-gold monster laid out to the horizon, 100,000 roofs, the dome of St. Paul's riding above the smoke haze like a ship, the spires, the river's glint in its gaps, the smoke of, they say, 3.5 million people's fires standing up into the sky in 1,000 slow columns, and every single column of that smoke, every one, hear this, is a grate that somebody knelt at in the dark this morning. That is what you see from the hill that nobody else sees. Other people look at that view and see the capital of the world, the biggest city that has ever existed on the earth, the money and the empire and the size of it. You look at it and see the work. You see 300,000 of you. That is roughly the real number in London alone this decade. Domestic service is the largest single employment of women in Britain, bigger than the mills, bigger than anything. 1 in 3 of all the young women in the country will pass through it, and from up here on the hill you can very nearly see them. In the columns of smoke, an invisible army holding up a visible city, and not one statue in all those miles of streets, not one is of any of them. The wind up here smells of grass and coal both, which is you, which is your whole life in one breath, and you stand there until the light starts to go amber and the lamplighters come out along the park edges below, little sparks blooming in lines, and then you turn around and walk back down into the city and down the area steps and back under the waterline, because the doors lock at 9:30, and a locked-out maid is a dismissed maid, and the fires will want you at 5. One more thing about that Sunday small, and I give it to you because it is the kind of thing the sentry kept in its pocket. On the way back through the park, a young man falls into step with you for 100 yards. A groom, by his boots and his bow legs, from a mews off Belgrave Square, civil, funny about the weather, careful. And nothing happens and nothing can, and both of you know the rules that make sure of it, because your terms of service contain a phrase, standard, printed, universal. No followers. A follower is a sweetheart. Your employers claim the right to forbid you one. A footman caught courting is warned. A maid caught courting is often simply gone, because a maid who marries leaves, and a maid who doesn't marry and gets into trouble is a scandal. and the cheapest way to manage both risks is to outlaw the whole department of human life while she's under your roof. You're 17. The state of your heart is a term of your employment. So the groom touches his hat at the park gate and says, "Perhaps another Sunday, miss." And you say, "Perhaps," in a voice that promises nothing because it is not yours to promise, and you carry the word miss all the way home like a chestnut still warm in your pocket because upstairs you are Hannah when they remember, and the girl when they don't, and no one in that house has ever once called you miss. Down the area steps, through the low door, the kitchen candle, the list for tomorrow chalked on cook's slate in a square hand. The bolt goes over on the area door behind you, click, and the width of the afternoon folds itself up like a fan, and you are inside again, under the house where you live. Now, let me take you through the rest of the week, because the week is a wheel, and every spoke of it has its own name and its own particular way of using up a body. Monday is washing day, and washing day is the heaviest labour performed in any English house, which is exactly why the grander houses send most of it out. And this house sends out the family's fine things, but does the household linen at home, in the washhouse off the backyard, with a washerwoman hired in for the day and you and Lily as her infantry. It begins Sunday night, in fact, with the soaking, and by 7 on Monday morning the copper in the corner of the washhouse, a great brick-set cauldron with a fire beneath it, is at the boil, and the small stone room fills with steam so thick you navigate by memory, and the smells stack up in layers you could cut. Soap, soda, the hot wet cloth smell of boiling linen, the blue rinse, and under it the sharp reek of the fire. The work is combat. Sheets are hauled boiling from the copper on a wooden stick, each one coming up heavy as a drowned man, streaming, scalding, dumped into the rinsing tubs, where the cold water cracks against your forearms after the steam. Then the dolly, a wooden stool on a pole that you plunge and twist into the tub to drive water through the cloth, and 10 minutes of the dolly is rowing a boat with your arms above your waist, and there are hours of it. Then the mangle, 2 wooden rollers and an iron crank, and you feed the sheets through while the washerwoman turns, or she feeds and you turn, and the crank fights you every inch, and the water sheets out and floods the stone floor and runs to the drain in the middle around your boots all day. By Monday night your hands have been in water, hot and hot again, for perhaps 10 hours, and they come out looking boiled themselves, white-ridged, pulpy at the fingertips, stinging at every crack the soda has found, and the skin across your knuckles is tight and shiny. And this is the point in the week when your hands and Lily's hands briefly match, and the two of you sit at the kitchen table at 10 o'clock, rubbing tallow into each other's knuckles like 2 old soldiers dressing wounds, mostly in silence, because what is there to say? Tuesday's ironing, the whole harvest of Monday pressed with flat irons heated in rotation on the range, and an iron is 6 or 7 pounds of solid metal, and you test its heat by holding it near your cheek, close enough to feel, never touching, a skill in your face itself, and you push that weight in long controlled strokes over sheet after tablecloth after pillow slip. Hours, and the smell of hot, clean cotton is genuinely one of the good smells of your life. One of the ones you would keep, and your right shoulder by Tuesday evening is a single seized knot that Wednesday will inherit. Wednesday, this week and every second week, is the turning out of a room, which means one of the great rooms is taken apart entirely, furniture into the middle under sheets, carpet corners taken up, every ornament washed, the picture frames wiped with a silk rag, the gilt mirrors breathed on and polished, the chandelier's lustres, each hanging drop of cut glass taken down and washed in gin and water. Gin, yes, it leaves no smears, and the whole room reassembled by evening so exactly that the family, who are out making calls, never knows the room dissolved and reformed while their backs were turned. Thursday is silver and brass day below and mending in the afternoon. The whole female staff sewing in the servants' hall by the window light, sides to middle, which means worn sheets cut down the centre and the strong outer edges sewn together to make one more year of sheet. Because thrift here is not a virtue, it is a physics. Friday, the kitchen and scullery and larders are scoured throat to floor, the flags scrubbed on hands and knees with sand, moving backwards, always backwards, so you never kneel on your own clean work. And Saturday half the house is polished for Sunday, and Sunday the wheel pauses on its church notch, and then it is Sunday night, and the linen goes into soak, and it is Monday. And you must not imagine, please, that anyone thinks any of this remarkable. That is the very last piece of the picture, and maybe the truest. There is a book in the kitchen dresser, everyone's kitchen dresser, a fat brick of a book called Mrs. Beeton's Book of Household Management, over 1,000 pages, and it lays out this entire wheel, hour by hour, duty by duty, in the calm voice of natural law, the way an almanac lays out the tides. Your 16-hour day is not a scandal in 1875, it is a syllabus. There are quiet voices beginning to say otherwise, letters to newspapers about the servant problem that are really letters about girls preferring the factories, where the hours are brutal but end, where evenings belong to the worker, where nobody rings, and the mistresses write back bewildered, genuinely bewildered, asking why gratitude has gone out of fashion. That argument will run for 50 years, and the factories and the shops and the typewriters will win it, and this whole world, the bells and the baize doors and the blacklead, will drain away within your own lifetime like a tide going out. You don't know that, kneeling on Friday's wet flags. But your knees, if it's any comfort, are on the winning side of history. There is one more institution of your world to show you before the light changes, and it is the darkest one, and I will show it to you the way it actually arrives, which is as gossip at the kitchen table over the 10 o'clock cocoa. Ellen brings it in with the cold from the area steps, having heard it from the parlour maid at number 9. A girl 3 streets over, a housemaid at one of the big houses on Chester Square, has been dismissed, and dismissed without a character. And the table goes quiet in a particular way, the way a ward goes quiet when a certain word is said, because everyone at this table understands precisely what that sentence weighs. A character is a reference, a few lines in an employer's hand, honest, sober, clean, hard-working, leaves of her own accord. That scrap of paper is the entire deed and title of your working life. There is no contract protecting you, no tribunal, no appeal. You cannot be hired into any respectable house without a character from the last one, and your last employer may simply decline to give you one, and is under no legal obligation whatsoever to explain, and may, if asked by your next prospective mistress, say anything at all. The girl on Chester Square, the story goes, was accused of taking a lace collar. The collar, the story also goes, and Ellen delivers this part flat without decoration, which is how you know she believes it, turned up a week later behind a drawer. It made no difference. The accusation had been made in front of the mistress's sister. Withdrawing it would have been awkward. The girl was paid to the day and put out, and without the paper the doors of every house like this one are closed to her, all of them, the whole white stucco mile of them, and what is left below those doors. For a girl alone in London with no character and a few shillings, everyone at this table knows and nobody at this table says. And cook gets up and rakes the fire with unnecessary violence, and Mr. Soames looks at his cocoa, 41 years deep in the knowledge that everything he has can be unmade by one sentence spoken upstairs. And Mrs. Reeve says to the room in her flattest voice, "Gather your candles, 10:30, as if tidiness could be pulled over the thing like a sheet. You go up the 82 steps to the attic with your candle, and Lily's candle bobbing behind you, and you lie in the dark under your coat and do what everyone at that table is doing in their own dark right now. You audit yourself. Every drawer you've opened, every dropped sixpence you've handed straight to Mrs. Reeve with a witness by, every mirror you've been careful never to linger at while carrying anything. You're honest, and it is not enough to be honest. You must be unaccusable, which is a different and much more exhausting profession, and it is the profession every servant in England practices on top of their actual one, all day, every day, for free. Underneath you the house ticks and cools. Somewhere below, in the morning, the wheel is already waiting, Monday's copper, the range, the bells asleep on their springs. You blow out the candle, the smell of tallow smoke, frost growing back across the inside of the glass. Lily's breathing, even now, strong now, on the other side of the small cold room. The one sound in this whole great house that is unambiguously good news. Spring comes, and spring in your calendar is not blossom. Spring is spring cleaning, and spring cleaning in a house like this is a campaign of 2 to 3 weeks, conducted while the family, if you're lucky, goes away. And this year you're lucky, they go to Mrs. Ashworth's sister in Kent for a fortnight in April, and the moment their carriage turns the corner the house exhales, and then rolls up its sleeves and eats you alive in a completely new way. Every carpet in the house comes up. Understand what a carpet is before machines. A woven weight the size of a room, and it comes up tack by tack, and is carried down and hung over lines in the yard, and beaten with cane beaters shaped like flat clover leaves. And the first blow brings out a grey ghost of dust that hangs in the air around you, and the second brings another, and an hour later you are still swinging, arms dead from the shoulder down, hair tied in a cloth, eyes streaming, sneezing black, and the dust that comes out of a single London drawing-room carpet after one winter of coal fires has to be seen, has been measured in pounds, plural, and every particle of it goes into the air you're standing in, and then mostly onto you. Every chimney is swept, the sweep and his boy arriving at 6 with their rods and soot cloths, and behind them every room must be shrouded, and then unshrouded, and then cleaned to the bone. Every mattress is unstitched at one seam, the flock picked over and teased apart by hand. Every book comes off every shelf and is banged shut sharply, spine up, and dusted along its top edge, hundreds of them, and Mr. Ashworth's library takes you and Ellen 2 full days, and somewhere in the middle of the second day Ellen reads aloud, flatly, one sentence from a book left open on the stand, something about the dignity of labour, and looks at you, black to the elbows, and neither of you laughs, which is somehow funnier than laughing. The paintwork is washed with vinegar water. The windows, all of them, 5 stories of them, are cleaned with whitening and rubbed off with scrim, and you do the outsides of the upper floors sitting on the sill, with the sash brought down onto your thighs to hold you. 4 stories of nothing behind your shoulder blades and the street noise coming up thin and far away. and this is normal, this is in the manuals, and every year, somewhere in London, a maid goes out of a window doing exactly this, and it makes 2 lines in the newspaper if it makes any, and the 2 lines never, ever say what she was cleaning it for. And here is the strange confession of those 2 weeks. With the family away, the bells silent, the baize door propped open, because there is no one to protect from your noise, the house half becomes yours. You eat your dinner at midday like Christians, cook says. You sing sometimes, all of you, at the work, proper loud. Ellen has a good high voice and James does the low line, and sound rolls up the great stairwell that has never once been allowed to hear you, and one evening, at the end of a 14-hour day of it, passing through the drawing room at dusk with the covers off half the furniture, you stop, alone, in the middle of the enormous clean room that you've just spent 2 days rebuilding with your hands, and the low sun is coming through the streak-free glass you nearly died for, gilding everything, and for one held minute you stand in the gold like the owner of it, like the owner of your own work, and then you hear the area gate, the fishmonger's boy, and you put the minute down where you found it and go and answer the door, because that is the arrangement. You may make the gold, you may not stand in it. The family returns, the bells wake up, the baize door swings shut. Summer comes, and summer is the season, Miss Arabella's second season. Balls and at-homes and the crush of carriages in the square until 2 a.m, and your day stretches at both ends to hold it, because a maid must sit up to undress a lady no matter what hour the lady comes home, and the lady comes home at 2, and the range still wants you at 5. There are weeks in June when you sleep in fragments, like a soldier, and learn the trick every servant learns of stealing sleep upright. 10 minutes in the linen room with your back against the warm press shelves, ears still cocked for your bell even while dreaming, and your dreams that season are all of bells. Everyone's are. It is the joke of the servants' hall that isn't a joke. What did you dream, girl? Bells, same as everyone. And then autumn, and the fogs begin. The real London fog, yellow-grey, coal-fed, thick enough some mornings that from the area steps you cannot see the railings across the street, and it gets indoors. It actually enters the house, hangs visibly in the hall by the gas globes, films every surface you cleaned yesterday with a fine greasy soot so that the work, always circular, becomes perfectly circular, wiped and resoiled and wiped, and Master Frederick's cough comes back, and the doctor comes for him within the hour, of course, half a guinea appearing for him like breath, and you carry the coal up and say nothing, and the winter closes over the house, and the year turns, and you turn with it, because you are part of the mechanism now, and mechanisms turn. Christmas in the basement is real, I should tell you that, because you have earned one good thing, and so have they. The family dines out on the day itself at the sisters', and so the servants' hall has its own goose, its own pudding brought flaming to the table by cook with her face lit up over it like a girl's, and Mr. Soames pours everyone a glass of port that is not strictly his port, and proposes the health of absent friends, and everyone thinks of a different absent friend. You can watch it move around the table like a slow wave. Suffolk and Kent and Bethnal Green and 41 years of other basements, and on Boxing Day the family gives the boxes the Christmas presents, and yours is a dress length of good grey cloth and a half sovereign, and it is given kindly, it genuinely is. Mrs. Ashworth says that Mrs. Reeve speaks well of you, and you curtsy and say thank you, madam, and both of those things are true, and neither of them is the whole truth, and you have long ago stopped expecting whole truths to fit through the gap between the two countries, which is only after all, the thickness of a green felt door. And somewhere in that turning year, without a date, without a ceremony, the thing happens that this whole night's story has been quietly walking towards, and it happens, of all places, at the kitchen table at 10:30 at night, over the mending. Mrs. Reeve is doing the accounts at the end of the table, and she looks up over her spectacles, and she watches you for a moment teaching Lily to darn a sheet properly, sides to middle, your needle going in its small, precise arcs, and she says, in exactly the voice she would use with a linen count, "You set that stitch like an upper housemaid." And then, back to her ledger, as if to the column of figures itself. "When Ellen goes, and Ellen will go, that one is for marrying. I shall put your name to the mistress." That is the entire speech. 11 seconds. But you must hear it with the ears you've grown in this house. Upper housemaid, in time perhaps head housemaid, in more time in another and larger house, with these years and a good character behind you, housekeeper, keys of your own, a room of your own with a fire in it. Mrs. Blake, by courtesy, spinster of the parish of somewhere, 40 years old, spine like a poker, standing at the end of some other kitchen table watching some other 17-year-old and knowing everything about her at a glance. Everything. Because you were her. It is a real ladder. It is the only ladder anyone has ever shown you. And lying in the attic that night, you hold it in your mind and turn it in the candlelight like the half-sovereign, and you feel the two feelings at once, fully, both of them true, and I will not resolve them for you because the century never resolved them either. The pride, hot and simple, at being seen to be good at difficult things, the oldest human pay there is. And underneath it, cold and simple, the other thing. That the prize for climbing this ladder is to spend your one life keeping the machine that keeps you. That the top of the ladder is Mrs. Reeve, and Mrs. Reeve, whom you have watched for 2 years with the closest attention you have ever paid anyone, is the loneliest person in the house. You blow the candle out. Both things are still true in the dark. You sleep anyway. The range wants you at 5. I want to spend a little while now on the texture of ordinary days, the ones with no dinner party and no fever and no 11-second prophecy. Because the ordinary days are the true country of this life. Hundreds of them a year, thousands of them in a service, and they have their own weather and their own small events. And if you are going to sleep inside this world tonight, this is the part you sleep inside. Take the hour before the family wakes, which is, and every servant who ever lived would tell you this if anyone had asked them, the best hour of the house, 6 to 7. The fires are lit, the worst of the black work done, the family still asleep, and the house at that hour belongs to nobody, which means it briefly belongs to you. You move through the great dim rooms in the grey light drawing back curtains, and each curtain opens with the same heavy, soft rumble of brass rings on the pole, a sound like distant thunder made of velvet, and the March light comes in low and lies down across the carpets, and dust you can never fully defeat rises in the light in slow galaxies, and the house is utterly silent except for the small sounds you make and the fires you made talking to themselves in their grates. And there is a kind of ownership in it, the ownership of the shepherd over the sleeping farm, wrong in law, real in fact. You know this house better than anyone who holds its deeds. You know the 7th stair creaks at its left edge and not its right. You know the drawing-room window that swells in wet weather and must be persuaded, not forced. You know where the sun reaches at each hour of each season, because the sun is your enemy in one respect. It fades the carpets, and part of your work is moving the light around the room by inches of curtain all day, like a slow game of chess against the sky. Mr. Ashworth owns this house. You operate it. Those are different verbs, and only one of them requires knowing anything. Take the food, since we are being honest about the good along with the rest. The smell of the bread delivery at the area door at 7. The baker's boy with the basket on his head. Loaves still warm at the heart. The kitchen at 11 when cook is baking, and the whole basement fills with the smell of pastry, and everyone finds a reason to pass through. Dripping toast at the range end on a cold afternoon, held to the bars on a fork, your face scorching, your back freezing, the fat going amber and fragrant, and cook pretending not to see because it is her own habit too. The beer, small beer with dinner, your legal allowance, weak and brown and bitter, and the cocoa at 10, made with milk gone slightly on the turn some nights, nobody minds, sweetened from the block sugar you pounded yourself, drunk around the last of the fire with your boots, finally off, stockinged feet on the fender rail, and that first minute of the boots being off is a pleasure, so violent it is almost a pain. The blood roaring back into your feet like a crowd, and someone groans, someone always groans, and someone else laughs the low laugh, every single night, the liturgy of the fender. Take the sounds you live inside, because you will fall asleep tonight, I hope, somewhere inside this list. The range, always, the bass note under everything, coals shifting and settling with small ceramic clinks, the kettle beginning, that long private whisper before the boil, the scrape of Lily's sand scour on copper, rhythmic, hiss, 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 and her tuneless half-whistle over it that she doesn't know she does. The area gate's iron clang and the tradesman's knocks, each different, the butcher's boy's double rap, the fish boy's kick because his hands are full. Upstairs, filtered through floors, the piano in the afternoon, Miss Arabella's scales rising and stumbling and rising, the same passage failing at the same bar for weeks until one day, mid-March, it doesn't. It goes through clean, and the whole basement, without one word being said, notices, and cook says to her pastry, "Well, hallelujah," and that is the closest the two countries come all year to sharing a moment, and the country upstairs never knows it happened. The lamplighter's pole tapping along the square at dusk, the watchman tread of Mr. Soames at 10:30 doing his locks, the same doors in the same order, brass bolts going over like a very slow tune you could hum, and last, up in the attic, the sound of London itself with the house asleep under you, that low, endless breathing rumble, wheels and hooves and water and wind in a million chimneys, 3.5 million lives idling together in the dark, the biggest quiet sound on earth. And take, because they belong to the truth of it, the small mercies of the year, the odd sweetnesses the system never planned. The morning the frost makes ferns over the whole inside of the attic window, and Lily, Bethnal Green Lily, who has seen everything and been surprised by nothing, stands in front of it with her candle for a whole minute, silent, and then says, "Well, I never," in a voice about 6 years younger than her face. The afternoon Mrs. Ashworth's canary escapes its cage, and the entire staff, all 7 of you, spend 20 minutes chasing it through the morning room with aprons and a fireguard, and even Mrs. Reeve is seen to move at speed. And when James finally cups it out of the pelmet, the whole room is laughing, actually laughing, upstairs, in daylight. And for a moment the house has only one country in it, and then everyone remembers and straightens, and the moment folds itself away with the dust sheets, The evening a hurdy-gurdy sets up at the corner of the mews, and the maids of 4 houses stand at their area gates in the dusk, listening across the street to each other, not speaking, just standing. 20 girls in white aprons in the blue light, and the tune is a cheap waltz, and it is somehow the most beautiful thing you've heard all year. And then the bells start going in one basement after another. You can hear them faintly, house after house calling its people in, and one by one the aprons turn and go down their steps, and you are the last. You stay for 8 more bars. You count them. 8, and that is your rebellion. The entire of it. 8 bars of a waltz on a Tuesday, and you take it downstairs with you and keep it in the tin with everything else. That is a servant's life in 1875. Not the horror alone, though the horror is real and I have not softened it. The hands, the knees, the hours, the pail, the trap of the character, the child at the sink, and not the cosy fireside picture the age like to paint of itself either. The grateful rosy maid in the Christmas engraving, both at once, all the time, braided so tight that no one who lived it could always tell you which strand was which. Warm bread and stolen sleep. The gold you make and may not stand in. A country of your own below the waterline with its own laws and jokes and mercies, invisible to the one above it, and holding it up every hour on its shoulders and its wrecked red hands. Before I bring you down into the ending, there is one more day I have to give you, because you would not fully know this world without it, and it is the day, near the close of your 2nd year, when the machine turns its blank face directly at you, and you feel, for 6 hours, the full cold weight of what you have always known in theory. It begins with the thimble. Mrs. Ashworth's thimble, gold, a wedding gift, kept in the workbox in the morning room, and on a wet Thursday in November it is not in the workbox. That is the entire event. An object smaller than a chestnut is not where an object was. And the house changes state around that absence the way water changes around a dropped stone. You learn about it the way you learn about all weather from upstairs, by its effects below. Mrs. Reeve comes down at 11 with her face closed 1 notch tighter than usual, and speaks quietly to cook, and the quiet spreads outward from the 2 of them through the basement like cold through a wall. Nobody's accused. That is the genius and the cruelty of it. Nobody is ever accused at first. The word thimble is simply allowed to exist in the house, and every servant under its roof begins instantly, privately, to conduct their own defence in the courtroom of their head. Where were you Tuesday afternoon? Who did the morning room Wednesday? You did. You did the morning room Wednesday. You feel the fact arrive in your chest like a swallowed coin, and it sits there, cold and physical all day, through the fires, through the trays, through your dinner that you eat and do not taste. And this exact sensation is the tax that the arrangement of this world levies on everyone at the bottom of it. You're innocent, and it does not matter. Because the question is never what you did. The question is what can be believed about you, and what can be believed about you is not in your keeping. It is in the keeping of people who do not know your surname. At 4 o'clock, Mrs. Reeve stands in the servants' hall and says that the mistress wishes the servants' boxes to be looked into, and that she, Mrs. Reeve, will do the looking, and that any girl may stand by while her own box is opened. And you all go up, the whole female staff in a silent single file, up the 82 steps, and stand in the cold attic while she lifts the lid of your tin box, your one private cubic foot on the earth, and moves her hand gently enough, it must be said, through everything you own. The spare dress. The Bible from your mother. And she opens the Bible and riffles the pages, because a thimble could lie in a Bible, and something happens in your throat watching her do it that you keep off your face by main force. The letters from home in their string. The tin with £4, 11 shillings, and sixpence that is now £5, 2 and 6, and she counts it, counts your money, in front of you. Not because she suspects the sum, but because a sum must be seen to have been counted, and writes the figure in her book. And then she closes the lid and says, "Thank you, Hannah," and moves to Lily's box. And in Lily's box there is a rag doll with a burnt corner, and 3 letters in a child's hand and 1 shilling. And watching Mrs. Reeve's fingers go through those, watching Lily watch it, 13, chin up, sink hands folded in front of her apron, eyes fixed on the frost-ferned window, is the closest you come in 2 years of service to hating the house itself, not any person in it. The house, the arrangement, the wall through the world. The thimble is in the workbox. It is found the next morning by the mistress herself, slipped down between the lining and the frame, exactly where a thimble slips when a workbox is tilted, exactly where. You and Ellen agree over the cocoa without either of you finishing a single sentence. It might have been looked for on Thursday before anything else was looked into at all. There is no apology. Understand this last mechanism and you understand the whole engine. There cannot be an apology because an apology would admit that an injury was done, and no injury can have been done, because nothing happened. A mislaid thimble was found. The household may be pleased. Mrs. Ashworth is, in her way, pleased. She tells Mrs. Reeve she is glad the matter resolved itself so simply. Simply. You carry that word up and down the stairs with the coal for a week, and here is what you do with it in the end, because this is the part of you that 2 years of this house has built, and I want you to feel it as strength, because it is strength, whatever else it also is. You take the day of the thimble, whole, the coin in the chest and the hand in the Bible and the counted savings and Lily's chin, and you fold it flat and you put it in the tin under the floorboard of yourself, with the different spoon and the 8 bars of waltz and the beautiful doorway full of gold, and you close the lid and you go on. Not because you are meek. Anyone who thinks the girls who did this were meek has never done 16 hours on stone flags with their hands split open. You go on because going on is the plan. Because the tin is not a grave, it is a bank. Because Ellen will marry her sergeant in the spring, she has told the kitchen at last, and the mistress will be given your name. An upper housemaid is £18, and £18 is faster shoes for Suffolk and a faster tin. And somewhere down the years, past head housemaid, past a bigger house, there is a version of this that ends with keys at your own waist and a fire in your own room, and no one, ever counting your money in front of you again. It is not justice. Nobody offered you justice. It was not on the terms. It is a road, and it is yours, and you have measured it, and you are walking it, one black-leaded morning at a time. That is where I will leave the daylight of this story. Not on a triumph, because 1875 did not hand out triumphs to housemates, and not on a tragedy, because you are not a tragedy. You are a girl getting stronger inside a system that never once asked her permission for anything. I will leave it on a Thursday evening in early December, the year turning again, the fog outside gone blue with dusk, and you on the back stairs with the last scuttle of the day, pausing on the landing at the little window that looks over the roofs. Chimneys to the horizon, each one breathing its slow grey feather up into the last light. Below you the kitchen glow, and the smell of cook's soup rising up the stairwell like a kindness. Above you, the attic and the frost already growing its ferns. All those columns of smoke, all those grates, all those girls kneeling tomorrow in all those dawns, the whole invisible army banked down for the night like fires. You stand there for the length of one breath, which is what you have, and then the drawing-room bell goes bright and quick, more coal, and you shift the scuttle to the other hip, the practised move, the whole body knowing it, and you climb. There is one small scene more from that same December that I saved for last, because it is the quietest and, I think, the truest. And it happens on a Sunday evening. The household's one slow hour. Everyone in the servants' hall around the fire with the week's mending and the week's talk. Lily is beside you on the settle, hemming a duster, tongue at the corner of her mouth, and out of nothing she says in her flat, small voice, "When I'm cook, I shall let my scullery girl sit down of an afternoon." Not a dream, you notice, a policy. She has been in service 10 months. She is 13 years old. Her hands look 40, and she has already drawn up the laws of her future kingdom, and the first law is a chair. And cook, across the hearth, who is not supposed to be listening, says without looking up from her own darning, "Mind you hold to that, girl, because I said the same at your age." And Mr. Soames, deep in his newspaper, says, from behind it, like an oracle from behind a curtain, "We all said the same," and the fire cracks, and nobody says anything else. And the whole history of service, the whole self-renewing wheel of it, hangs in the room for a moment, visible, the way your breath is visible on the attic stairs. Everyone at this fire was once the smallest person at some other fire, and everyone swore the chair, and the houses ground the oath out of some of them and not out of others, and which kind you become is decided in 10,000 small moments exactly like this one, in rooms exactly like this one, that no book upstairs will ever record. You look around it once, deliberately, the way you looked at the view from the hill, to keep it, the low room, the whitewash gone amber in the firelight, James asleep sitting up with his mouth open and his powdered head against the wall, leaving a faint white smudge that Ellen will tease him about for a week. Mrs. Reeves' needle moving in small exact strokes, her keys for once silent in her lap, her face unguarded by half a degree, which for her is practically weeping. The smell of the fire and the wet boots drying in a row by the door and the last of the Sunday loaf, the window black and the fog pressing its cheek against the glass, and all of London out there in the cold, and all of you in here, in the warm you made. This is the room history forgot. This exact room, 10,000 times over, under every fine terrace in every fine square in England, all through that century. The low warm country under the waterline, resting on its one evening, holding its small parliament by the fire. The people upstairs got the paintings and the novels and the blue plaques. The people down here got the fire itself, and each other, and the 10 o'clock cocoa, and they knew things about work and endurance and looking after your own, that the country above them was never once required to learn. And when you listen to this in the dark, a century and a half away, in your warm bed, in your heated room, with your machines doing quietly in the walls what Hannah's whole body used to do, it is worth knowing just before you sleep, whose shoulders your comfort learned to stand on, not to feel guilty. Guilt was never what any of them wanted, and they would have had short Suffolk words for it. Just to know, just to hold the door open once, the green door, and look through it, and see them there by the fire, and nod the way you nod to someone whose work you finally understand. And now the house is going to sleep, and so, at last, are you. and I am going to take you up those stairs one final time, slowly, because this is the part of the night that belongs to you and to Hannah both. It is 10:30. Mr. Soames has done his locks, the slow brass tune of the bolts, front door, garden door, area door, each one a low clack and a slide and a settling, and the house is sealed for the night like a ship battened down. The gas is off in the great rooms, the fires are raked low and guarded, 14 of them sinking together into their beds of ash, each one holding a red heart under grey that will still be faintly warm when you come to it in the morning, like something sleeping rather than something dead. Cook has banked the range last of all. Her own particular ceremony, coal laid just so, damper set just so, the great iron animal fed and shut in for the night, and its heat will seep upward through the bones of the house for hours yet. The deepest and oldest warmth in the building, the warmth everything else was built around. You take your candle from the row on the dresser, 7 candlesticks in a line, one for each of you, and one by one through the evening they have been lifted and carried away up the dark. Mrs. Reeves first, then Mr. Soames, then Cook, then Ellen, then James to his room by the pantry where he sleeps beside the silver like a soldier beside the colours, and now yours, and Lily's, the last 2 lights in the basement, and you shield the flame with your cupped hand the way you have done 1,000 times, and your own palm glows around it, red gold, the light coming through your fingers through the cracks and calluses of them, and even your ruined hands are beautiful like this. Everything is beautiful like this. Candlelight is the great forgiver. Up the back stairs, 82 steps, but you are not counting tonight. Your feet count for you. Past the baize door, silent on its hinges, keeping its one soft secret. Past the family floors, where the only light is the thin gold line under Mrs. Ashworth's door, and the only sound is Master Frederick turning over in his sleep, the cough quiet tonight, and you register that the way you register everything in this house, automatically the shepherd's ear, all well, walk on. The stair window on the last landing shows you London going to bed too, the gas lamps of the square below burning in their globes, each one wearing a faint halo in the beginning fog, the pavements empty, one late cab somewhere streets away, hooves and wheels fading like a sentence trailing off. The attic. The candle makes the room out of the darkness, the 2 iron beds, the tin boxes, the washstand with its film of ice already starting, the frost ferns spreading their silver forest across the window glass. Patient, ancient, the same design they have grown on every cold window since windows began. Lily is already down, already breathing long and slow, one chapped hand outside the blanket, and you tuck it back under without waking her, an old habit now, and she frowns in her sleep like the pan is dirty again, and then lets it go. You sit on the edge of your bed and take the pins from your hair, one by one, each one a small separate relief, and your hair comes down and your scalp breathes, and you rub the sore crown of your head where the pins ride, and then your boots, the last laces of the day, and the blood floods back into your feet, that violent nightly mercy, and you let out the breath you have, in some sense, been holding since 4:45 this morning, and your body begins its accounting, the way it does every night, item by item, and tonight, this last night we are together, let it. Let every ache report and be heard. The right forearm from the blacklead, a deep dull wooden ache, old friend, noted. The left hip where the box rides, its familiar bruise noted. The knees, both, the low grinding memory of stone noted. the hands stinging faintly at their cracks in the warmth of the blankets as you slide in, the tallow doing its slow work. Noted, noted. The feet singing their long, dumb song of stairs. 82 steps how many times today? 10, 12, a mountain a week. And the mountain is climbed. It is behind you. Every step of it is behind you, and there is nothing left in the whole world that you have to carry up anything. The candle stands guttering on the box beside you, and you watch it a moment, the way you do, the small flame swaying in draughts too fine to feel, and then you wet your fingers and pinch it out, the tiny hiss, the last smell of the day. Tallow smoke, and the darkness comes in soft and complete, and lies down over the room like one more blanket, and the sounds sort themselves into their nightly order. Nearest, Lily's breathing, slow and well. Then the house below you, ticking and creaking as it cools, joists and stairs easing their shoulders in the dark. The enormous patient body of it settling around its sleeping people. All of them, both countries, breathing under one roof, kept by fires you laid, warm in air you carried, the whole thing held up all night, effortlessly, by work already done. Then, outside and underneath everything, London, the great low never-ending breath of it, wheels somewhere, wind in 10,000 chimney pots, the river sliding black under its bridges, 3.5 million sleepers turning over together, and the sound is so vast and so constant that it stops being sound at all and becomes something more like the pulse of the dark itself. And you have slept inside that pulse for 2 years now, and it holds you the way the sea holds a boat. Tomorrow there will be the range. Tomorrow there will be the fires and the bells and the stairs. Tomorrow there will be all of it again, the same as today, the same as yesterday, the same as all the days stretching out ahead down the long road, with the keys at the end of it. But that's tomorrow. That is entirely, completely tomorrow's business, and tomorrow is not allowed in this room. Nothing is wanted of you now. No bell can reach the attic. No list has your name on it until the clock strikes 5, and the clock is hours from striking. Whole deep hours, and every one of them is yours. You're warm enough, fed enough, safe enough. You have a bed, and a friend breathing softly across the dark, and £5, 2 and 6 under the floorboard, and a name that will be put to the mistress in the spring. That's more than the day asked you to believe in this morning. That's enough, and centuries will pass. Hear this last part on the very edge of sleep, because it is for you, the one lying in the dark right now, wherever you are. Centuries will pass, and the world Hannah knows will change beyond recognition. The ranges will go cold for the last time and be broken out of the walls. The bells will be painted over, and their wires will rust inside the plaster, and people will find the little boards in old basements and photograph them, charmed, not quite believing. The coal smoke will lift off London like a fever breaking, and the attics will become flats with heating in every room, and somebody will pay a fortune to sleep where the frost ferns grew. The whole arrangement, the 2 countries and the green door between them, will drain away so completely that it will take historians with gloves and archives to prove it was ever there at all. But people will still lie down tired at the end of the long days. People will still do work that nobody sees, and hold each other up in ways that no record keeps, and put the hard things in the tin, and go on. People will still climb their own stairs at night with their own small light, and sit on the edge of the bed, and let the body make its report and forgive it everything. Some things don't change. The tired human body at the end of its day, that doesn't change. The kindness of the dark, that doesn't change either. So let it come. Let sleep take you the way it took Hannah in her attic under the frost-ferned window 150 years ago, with the great city breathing around her and the fires banked low. Let the sounds fade. Let the lists go blank. Let your hands, whatever they carried today, lie open and empty and done. Let your thoughts slow and soften and finally stop. You've earned this rest, all of it. Take it, and dream of whatever dreams may come. Good night.